one or two stragglers taking their seats, but we hope the orchestra will be taking their seats very shortly.
The SCO was set up initially by a group of musicians, a group of pioneering, wonderful, world-class players who wanted to play together. And so there's always been at the very heart of the SCO this desire to make music and to share music.
Yeah, we do. We do have fun. I'm so lucky to do this job.
Everyone is passionate about what they do. Like, we're all passionate.
I go to work every day with the Scottish Chamber Orchestra, looking forward to making music with my colleagues.
One of the special things about the Scottish Chamber Orchestra is actually that it plays to so many different audiences. I always feel they play to an audience. It's never inward, it's always a communication with an audience. And I think that is in part because they tour so much. They play everywhere from Duns to the furthest points north and the Highlands and Islands.
That's one of the main things that I love about the SCO, the chance to head up north in Scotland and out to the outer isles. We've had such fun on the various tours that I've done over the years.
This group of players is as equally happy, committed, passionate to be in a community hall in Shetland as they are playing in the Usher Hall in Edinburgh or at the Proms or the Musikverein in Vienna.
We do travel a lot around the world, to the Far East, to South America, the Americas, and even India, in fact. So it's kind of, I feel like it gives us a sort of a face around the world.
It is useful for people to know that it's not just a little local band, but it's something that's appreciated worldwide. And that is something to be proud of.
The SCO is one of the most amazing world-class institutions that we have, and it brings in people from all around the world to be part of it. We had Robin Ticciati, who's a great conductor who's gone on to be a big name elsewhere. Now we've been fortunate enough to get Maxine, who I think is a conducting genius.
SCO now turning to 50th anniversary. And but stylistic of the orchestra you can recognize. The orchestra has its face. When I was like 10 years ago studying, I heard one of Beethoven recording, I think, from Scottish Chamber Orchestra, and I was impressed of the sound.
I've heard them a great deal over 25, 30 years now. And almost whatever conductor they're working with, you always know it's the Scottish Chamber Orchestra. They have this immediacy and this freshness and this dynamism.
As an ensemble, it's a very friendly orchestra, and I know that because people have said, guest players coming in, I hope, feel very welcome. So it's a very friendly orchestra. The sound, sound is a hard thing to define. A sound of an orchestra evolves over time.
It's certainly changed a lot over the years, because when I first started we were all on modern instruments, and then it was after a recording session with McKerris when he cornered me with Harold Robbins Landon and said, how about next time you use natural trumpets?
It's undoubtedly Sir Charles McKerris made a huge impact on what we now know as the sound of the SCO, and Maxim Emelianichev is taking that on because it was McKerris who introduced natural horns, natural trumpets and natural timps, and that was a new thing. So you combine that with the modern strings and modern wind and you get the warmth, you get the delicacy, you get the warmth of the modern instruments, you get the clarity, and you get the excitement, dare I say, the edge of the natural instruments, and combine the two together in classical repertoire, and they spring off the page.
I do many different concerts with many different orchestras, but here in Scotland is kind of special relationship with orchestra. And during last years, I'm just so lucky person because I can not only conduct, but I can do concerts of chamber music. Our soloist can play in front of the orchestra. We try different things. We try to play more and more gut strings. We are commissioning new pieces for composers who are writing for us, especially.
So I first came into contact with SCO when I was about 14 or 15 in high school at Cumnock Academy. The SCO were in to do workshops with us in composition, and that really was my first opportunity to dabble in composition and write my first sort of like full piece of music essentially. And it was a small group of musicians who came in to workshop our music, and then eventually they recorded the work as well. And for me, that's, to think back on that is pretty sort of pinch me stuff really, to think then that, what's that, 15 years later I'm now appointed as the Associate Composer for the Scottish Chamber Orchestra. So that's fairly mind-blowing stuff actually.
These ones here actually work very well.
I think the Scottish Chamber Orchestra has been at the forefront of the encouragement of young composers, new composers in Scotland, and bringing the music of our time into their programmes. And you know, we understand, we know that there's sometimes a reluctance, a tendency amongst classical music audiences about the question of new music. It's not music that people know, so they have to be presented with it in a new way. But the Scottish Chamber Orchestra's audiences have been very open, not just open-minded, but open-eared, and that's exactly what our musical culture needs, but it's exactly what the living composer needs. Some of my most important work has been written for the Scottish Chamber Orchestra right from the first few days, but I suppose it's inevitable that I would have to point to my percussion concerto, Veni Veni Emmanuel, which in many ways has been my most successful piece. I wrote it for Evelyn Glennie and the Scottish Chamber Orchestra, and they premiered it at the BBC Proms in London in the early 1990s, and it's had over 600 performances since.
Well, I was appointed as principal viola in 1987, and the orchestra was at the most extraordinary stage. Ian Ritchie was the artistic director, and he had connected with Peter Maxwell Davies and invited him to be associated composer, conductor. And between them, they wanted to celebrate this magical relationship between composer, orchestra and audience, this sort of sacred triangle. And I arrived right in the middle of this kind of flowering of new music in Scotland. And the relationship with Peter Maxwell Davies, became incredibly important to me. I remember doing Schoenberg's Verklärte Nacht with him conducting and having a conversation over coffee, and I think that was when I told him that I also was composing, and that was really what I wanted to do, and how performing was something I was doing then, but I didn't always want to do it. I wanted to compose. I then went back to London after a year with the SCO, and it was Max and James Macmillan who encouraged me to come back up to Scotland, to leave the viola behind and to concentrate on composition. And it was an incredibly sort of rich seedbed of possibilities.
I think what I find important about the SCO is their ability to engage people in unusual and quite unique ways, whether it's through new music or core repertoire or community engagement. They find a really nice balance between high quality music making, but also presenting it in a very, very accessible way.
Well, one of the things that I'm really impressed by is the work that they do in the communities and schools, not just what happens in the concert hall. And that's another reason that we're so proud to support their work. So it's not just about playing music for people who want to buy a ticket. You know, we're already sold. If you bought a ticket, we're already sold on classical music and on the idea of a chamber orchestra. But the work that they do in developing young musicians, in working with people who are not yet familiar with the classical repertoire or the idea of an orchestra, that to me is something that they bring that's different and really, really has a lot of impact.
I've done quite a lot of work for the Reconnect project for our creative learning department, which is going in towards of people living with dementia and playing music for them that hopefully they might recognise or they might not recognise, but music with which they can join in. So we take with us instruments like percussion instruments, and we encourage people to play, never forcing, but just encouraging people to join in. We move around the circle. It's never a huge amount of people, so it's easier to interact individually with people.
On the community engagement front, the SCO, again, it's that sort of balancing act of going into communities and presenting it in an accessible way that's not about going in to do music to communities, if you understand what I mean, but it's about welcoming communities in and actually listening to communities to ask them what would you like from us and how can we engage you in a way that's meaningful to your community and how we can go about then reflecting that community through SCO activity. And SCO at the moment have their residency in Craigmillar, and it's about having conversations with the communities to learn from them so that we can help them reflect their community through the music that we make or the art that we make, and just to find ways to enjoy creativity.
I feel that the SCO does music for the right reasons in some way, if I can be so bold. Like, it's there to try and project something that's really kind of profound and to try and connect with audiences.
My feeling about what makes the SCO so special is their fearless desire to constantly search for real meaning within music. There is a shared desire, always a kind of egoless desire from everyone here to try and ensure that the music that we perform is at the quality that the music deserves to be heard. And I think ultimately that's what makes this organisation so unique. There's a freshness, there's a sense of belonging, there's a sense of purpose, and there's a sense of openness.
Well, it's a great privilege to sing with this incredible orchestra on a regular basis, and it's given me some of the best musical experiences of my life, really.
Well, the repertoire, for one thing, it's fabulous and hard, and we really get put through our paces. It's kind of musical aerobics every week with Greg.
There's a sense of community about the choir. I feel very fortunate to have made, lifelong friends. We've supported each other through heartache, through celebration over the years, and feel, just I look around in a rehearsal and I look at all these people from all different walks of life, all different ages, and I just look around and feel very lucky to call them my friends.
Not everybody was raised with music in their house, but everybody can have music in the community if the organizations are committed to it, and I think SCO has shown that commitment.
There are people in Scotland and further afield who, for whatever reason, aren't going to be able to come to one of our concerts either at all or very often. So we look for opportunities to broadcast, to make films, and to take our music, to get our music out there. We balance that with the desire to create these live, special musical moments where people can be in the same room together.
That's the great thing. We're there almost every Thursday night throughout the season, and it's always something new or something to think about.
Really innovative and excellent performances.
Brings passion into other people's lives.
To have access to those concerts, a bus ride away from your house,
It's really important that we cherish these organisations. It's really important that the Scottish Orchestra is cherished and continues to grow.
I don't think I should think about future. I'm delighted to be here and to stay here longer. And but my impact should be now, and I must give happiness to audience nowadays.
It's about creating excellent experiences, creating opportunities, creating transformational moments that you will remember for the rest of your life, whether you are in a community hall in the Highlands or in the new Dunard Centre that's being built in. It's going to be built in Edinburgh for the SCO in the coming years. The SCO will continue to advocate for, to be passionate about, to share its music at the very highest level for as many people as possible, really for everybody, for years to come.